The revolution's begun. The time to stand up has come. We are the rocking of the throne. We are the rocking of the throne.
I'm Victor Tiffany with Revolt Against Plutocracy. The story about the massive Facebook Twitter purge of anti-establishment media pages and associated individuals is still being told. One of the media outlets purged by Fascistbook was antimedia.com, an anti-establishment news aggregating website focused, it seems to me, on factual accuracy in how they report their stories. It was not purged for being fake news. They have a story on their website about their being purged, which includes Fascistbooks saying what they're saying about why, on their website, why hundreds of media pages were taken down and purged from their network. Now, I doubt there's a whole lot of people who understand how Revolt Against Plutocracy built the Burn Your Bus pledge movement. But in that story titled The Facebook Purge of Independent Media, what you're not being told conveyed, quote, Facebook states that the people behind this alleged spam create networks of pages and post the same clickbait post in dozens of Facebook groups. Facebook said its partnership with the Atlantic Council was aimed at preventing the social media tool from being abused during the elections, end quote. Now, we had two pages during Burn Your Bus, Revolt Against Plutocracy, which still exists and serves kind of as a transparent headquarters for communications to the public. And we had Bernie or Else, initially it was called. We never had a Bernie or Bus page or group. But we used Bernie or Else as a recruiting tool, separate from what we Revolt Against Plutocracy. So that was technically a small network of pages. And the way we recruited, from the committee members out to volunteers, I actually recorded tutorials showing people how to use, we call it a hook, coupled with a URL to one of our many Burn Your Bus narratives explaining, why to take the pledge. And we explain how to copy that and just go down through the Facebook groups, pasting it. Next group, paste, 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 and just go down. And we had to go slow because Facebook started throwing us in jail, not just Bernie or Busters, but people promoting Bernie got banned from posting in groups for a while. So this is a struggle that's been ongoing, but now there's new rules. News reports indicates that Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook and billionaire, is testing the waters for a presidential bid in 2020. So this suppression of dissident voices for information and new rules in terms of what set of activities Fascistbook is now looking for and purging individuals for engaging in might not be as much of a fascistic operation by the establishment as it is a way for the owner of Facebook to cut the opposition for his bid to the White House right out of his creation. It's a power play. Whether it is fascist repression by the establishment or an ambitious power grab by the owner, new rules mean that recruitment and movement building is no longer possible on Facebook, and probably because of the conspiracy with Twitter on that social media network either. In order to remain in good standing with Facebook, and that's where the people are, all movement building is going to have to go, and recruitment is going to have to go off from Facebook to alternative media groups, me, we, and the rest, Minds, and so forth. All those other groups, we're going to have to move. Persuasive speech, even. You can't even be, I don't think they want you trying to convince people how to vote, what to vote, who's a good candidate, who's a bad candidate. They're basically chopping free speech and oppositional speech out of these social media networks. It's all very fascistic or just like I said, a raw power grab. These other groups, these other media organizations might be preaching to the choir, but that's where there might be good recruitment capable for movement building around a strategy and so forth. We're going to need to recruit millions of others. We're going to have to recruit. We're going to have to innovate as to how we actually reach other people. We can use what we are working toward, which is a network of networks, but a lot of people have to buy into that, and there's a lot of uncertainty around whether that will happen or not. But meanwhile, we can still come up with innovative ways to recruit and movement build online. It's going to have to be done because people have to have an alternative between these outsourcing neoliberals like the Clintons and Obama with their so-called free trade agreements where people's jobs are being outsourced, national self-determination is being overthrown, and democratic self-determination is a thing of the past because the corporations, the transnational corporations, write their own rules on how they behave in our society and gets imposed on us through so-called agreements, free trade agreements. People need an alternative to Trump from that, and that means it's going to be a progressive kind of alternative. Without an exit from that dangerous approach to trade, either Trump's oil and gas super privileged trade agreements, where he throws a bone to labor, gets some support for what he's doing, or the neoliberal approach to outsourcing and essentially a corporate coup over our very system of government, progressives are going to have to win elections. Only progressives can solve humanity's climate crises because we're not beholden to corporations. They're not owned by us. We don't owe them any respect. We see them as a threat to the environment, and now they've essentially taken over our very government. It's one of the reasons we argued many years ago that we need a revolution, because we have a corporate state. It's kind of a bold claim establishment might argue against, but it's pretty clear, especially in the aftermath of Citizens United, that the corporations control basically who gets elected because of the amount of money they can pour into our elections. Back to what we need. We have a crisis, and only progressives are going to solve this crisis, not the neoliberals, not the conservatives, not the libertarians. They're all basically pro-business and on one level or another neoliberal or old school liberal, which is get the government out of the way. They will not solve the problem. In order to take the bold action necessary to slow climate change, eventually to a stop, and eventually to reverse it so we can get the levels of carbon and methane down to pre-industrial levels. That's a huge challenge. We're going to need a mobilization unlike anything we've had since World War II. But we can afford it. We can afford to do anything we need to do. We're talking about survival of the human race, and only progressives are going to do what basically the American people want done. American people don't self-identify as progressives, but they want progress toward climate change. They want progress toward medical care, health care, and housing. They want progress toward clean water. They want progress. They don't want corporate profits to control what decisions and laws are made in Washington. Progressives, and only progressives, can solve problems. That's what we do. We advance democratic order and solve problems. And Revolt Against Plutocracy aims to outlaw plutocracy and bring about a democratic order through campaign finance reform. That's our specific special interest. But broadly, we have a strategy that we exercised. We wrote a book about what we did in 2016 called Bernie or Bust, Revolt, or Electoral Pioneers of Electoral Revolt. Thank you. We know what the left is up against, and we're going to need new and refined versions, not only of the hook and URL clickbait that worked so well in 2015 and 16. We also need to work together and share best practices, whether we're talking across party lines with the People's Party, or the Green Party, or progressive organizations. But we need to address the crisis, and only progressives can do this. We're at a point in American history where one can honestly say it's going to be progress or extinction. And this is our message really in 2016, and it's remained so. The Brian Stelters of the establishment will consider progressive or bust approach to elections as uncompromising, because of course it threatens the Democratic Party establishment. His desired centrist approach will lead to ecological disaster and collapse. I'm going to come back to Stelter. I talked about him in the last video, and I'm going to talk about it again. I'll put that last video in the video that's in the closing screen of the next frame.
Revolt Against Plutocracy won't just be covering the news about the necessary revolution in the United States. Sometimes we'll be making the news. If you want to stay on top of the revolutionary actions and strategies of grassroots, genuine progressives, and our allies, please subscribe to our YouTube channel today.